I'm a degenerate. Anyway, yo, it's Mini TV here. How we doing? This is DPC again, week 4 or 5, I think, now going into it. And unfortunately, 4. Unfortunately, we don't have our third member, but don't worry, we have the personality of 3 people with me and my brother, Mr.
Also, your schizophrenia. Don't
yes,
forget that.
and my third personality is also in the wings. So let's jump straight into it, shall we? The past weeks and games. We'll start off with OG versus Enigma, which I think at the end of the day was a bit of an anticlimactic series. It went to 3 games in the end, but it was almost stomps on every different game. Stomps for OG in game 1. The Ursa and Monkey King got caught out by the Venom and the Razor. But game 2 and game 3, Enigma had a very slow draft with both AM and Deuce of Cores, and kind of just got rolled by Thompson's puck. And yeah, it was just a quick series all throughout. I don't know if you saw that series, but it was a bit.
I did, and I actually thought OG should have won game 1. I actually thought Thompson. Sorry, Thompson. I don't know why Thompson. Actually threw. I thought on his Monkey King. There was a couple of times where they picked the Razor, and he was actually doing the business against him. To be honest, I know the Ursa didn't have a good lane against Veno, but I thought, actually, you know what? Even though they've been outdrafted here, I thought OG was still winning the game, and then all of a sudden Monkey King died like 3 or 4 times, and
yeah, I mean, it's fair. He played really well in the lane. He outplayed. He beat a Razor in lane, which is like really rare. But the rotations were, they just kept running heroes to mid and kept killing and over and over again. So yeah, that was a quick win for OG. Obviously, like a pretty big series. We'll talk about the standings at the end. We finished these games, but it's definitely meant a lot for OG. The second series, I think, was almost one of the series of the week. Alliance versus Tundra. I watched this actually from the perspective of Limp, because I've been trying to practice the middle lane, so I've been watching all the mid players' perspectives. And I thought Limp on game 1, he played puck, and I thought he played really bad, actually. Bad in the sense that he's underperforming. Obviously, he's still 10, like nearly 11k, so still fantasy player, but bad in the sense that he underperformed from what he could have, I thought. Like, just there's a few things, a few inconsistencies, a little bit, and I think that might be maybe game 1 nerves or just first game of the day. However, the opposite was Skeeter on the carry for Tundra has really been impressing me, to the point that I think he might be my MVP, or at least the rookie of the year, or the up and coming player. When he was playing for NIP, which was like a couple of months ago, almost last year when he played with PPD, I didn't think much of him. But this series and this DPC, I thought he's played really well. And I think the real thing that is an indicator to me that he's playing well is like he's doing things that I don't think most carries would do, which to me I think is an outstanding trait. Like, just for example, game 2, game 3, game 2, he almost single-handedly carried that game, and then they ended up losing that game, but he was playing so well on the PL. And then game 3, when it was a complete kind of early dominance by Alliance, they were like 6, 7, 8k behind, and he ends up doing this crazy play of like rushing the roast by himself when he's playing the Ursa, and he almost brought the game back. And I have to admit, he's definitely my really a player to watch, because Tundra are a great team, but I could honestly think he could play for some of these top teams like OG, even Secret. In the future, I think he's honestly my standout performer. He had one bad death I have to mention on the game 2 as PL. He ended up dying very easily in the late game, which can be game losing, and it kind of was. But that outside of that one blip in that series, I thought he played fantastic. Just his decision, there were so many times in this series in the DPC that he was also the guy who was the Wraith King. He got the Giant's Ring, the Rapier, and the Wraith King. They ended up beating that game against Secret, if you remember, in week 1. And just throughout the whole series, he's done some really any regular standard player, I think, wouldn't make those plays. So I think Skeeter for me is.
I actually quite agree. This is a guy who I had never heard of. Whenever I see him play, I always have a lower view of him, because he's a guy that I didn't know about before. He's not some of these big names who have been around for a long time. But I'm always impressed by the way he plays, and the fact that he always does seem to kind of have that aura of it's never really over.
Exactly.
Because especially when he plays people like Wraith King and he's some of these bigger hard
Yep.
carries that he's played before, I'm like, yeah, this isn't over yet. So he is very impressive actually.
Really big impact player for sure. So moving on to our third series, this was on the Wednesday, the single series on the Wednesday, the Viking versus High Coast. And can you believe it?
What happened?
They are no longer called High Choke Esports because they won a game. I
couldn't believe it.
Their first series win, and it was a 2-0, interestingly enough, actually. A clean sweep. Which is really just kind of crazy because if you actually consider it, like, this was High Coast that had lost every series, and then Viking ended up beating Enigma last week, and then they lose to High Coast Esports. It kind of really just shows the kind of the higher echelon that really the European League is, that anyone could beat anyone, which I think is really cool. But it was
and let's be honest, it was because they heard us bashing them last week.
True,
that was absolutely it.
It was
they'd logged on, they'd seen the YouTube, and they were like, "That's it. We can't have these guys.
Definitely.
This guy who is a 3K legend player is abusing us. We need to up our game." And then they go and beat Vikings.
It was great.
There we go.
And I think this is probably a great. What's the word I'm looking for? Like, if you was trying to find, or if you're trying to realize, like, how can you kind of beat teams that are better than you, I think this is the perfect formula to do it, because they played the very similar strategies both games. A lot of them, and they both were kind of this group up and push kind of style. They had like Juggernaut, Chen, Beastmaster kind of heroes, where like, as long as you do okay in the laning stage, you can kind of roll down lanes and kind of group up, and there's like, it's quite easy to execute kind of strategy. And as a result, I think that does show a little bit of weakness in Viking, because both strategies were really the same. There were just a few different heroes, and it showed a lot of inadaptability from Viking. They were playing heroes like Medusa, very these slow kind of paced heroes, and it kind of got picked off. Yeah, Naga got picked off by High Coast Esports, so their first series win, so good for them. Unfortunately, I think they're still guaranteed to get relegated, but it was still cool to sort of see them get some points on the board.
Going down fighting, that's what we like to see.
Exactly. So, and then the kind of I'd say the playoff Saturday, I think, which was some of the big series, OG versus Viking, the first series of the Saturday, and it actually was a surprise win for Viking, who were kind of slating losing to High Coast Esports. So again, showing the kind of real balance in the league, really, where they're losing to the 8th team in the league and then beating the 2nd seed in the league as well. Probably this was also a fantastic series. If you didn't watch, I think this was probably my series of the week. 1 and 2. Long games. The first one, they OG ended up losing. They had a real lead at the start. I think almost like a 10k gold lead. Thompson was playing.
Yeah, I saw game 1 fully.
And then they ended up kind of throwing it, like usual over aggression from OG. Game 2, kind of they showed, okay, we're being serious now. We're 1 game down. So game 2, OG then stomped it. But game 3, I have to really comment, like, this Gyrocopter pick, man. Like, this hero is not good. Like, I can't, like, if teams like OG are picking this hero and they can't make it work, I do not have any faith in it. And again, some more kind of throws, very hyper aggressive plays from Thompson. And I think he's one of those players that, either it can look like this guy is the best player in the world, or he can look like a really poor player. Yeah, what are you doing? Like, you're just feeding. Like, there was one play, like, he's playing the Ember, and like he like uses like 2 or 3 remnants, dives like the tier 2 tower, Viking all TP, and they just kill him, and you're just like, Thompson, you're like 2nd net worth, and you just feed like that kind of net worth. And it, sometimes it looks amazing, and he's like, how does he get away with that? And sometimes he just looks like really poor play. And this hyper aggressive play punished him.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, I felt similar in game 1 with some of his puck plays. Some of the times that he was surviving, dodging everywhere, that Octarine core means that he could just blink everywhere, and you just think, how is this guy this good? And then there's other times where he like kills himself to get a position 5 or 4, and you're like, do you realise the net worth difference? Like, is it? And so it's great to see, I suppose.
It's great fun. I mean, I think. But to be fair to Thompson as well, game 2, the reason why it was a stomp was because of his performance in the mid lane on game 2. So it's one of those things where it's like, I've like, this is obviously a very big anecdotal evidence, but there's a player on my team who is kind of plays at Topson where he can do these amazing plays and he carries you some games, and in some games he literally throws games for you as well. And it's very difficult as a captain to kind of have that, because like as a captain you want reliability, you want stability, you want like the safe, like you want consistent 7 out of 10 performances. You don't want 10s and then 2s some weeks. You just want 7 every week, day in day out. And I think as a result, Topson is one of those players. He plays 10s, he plays 2s, and I think in this series it kind of just didn't work out for him, and they lost that series. Any other thoughts on that series though?
No, that was it. I was literally just about to link that to the next game, which is the Secret versus the Alliance game. If you ask me, Secret is that team that always give you a 7 or an 8.
Exactly, yep.
They may actually be a bit boring sometimes. Some Secret games, although I support them, I'm a bit like, oh, well, this is just a bit typical Secret. We've kind of won already, and that's it. There's nothing crazy flashy. But at the same time, they're 5-0 because they are consistently, they know what they're doing.
True.
And Nisha is obviously a great mid, and this was the only series that I thought, like I said, I thought this was going to be a Secret loss.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it did go to 3 games in the end, but I think you're totally right. Actually, I never thought about Secret like this, but when we made that analogy of Topson, like the 2 out of 10 and some of them 10 out of 10, Secret are that 7 out of 10 because game 1 it was really just a Secret stomp in the end of the day.
Oh my word!
But game two, like the lanes weren't quite even. And I think this gave Alliance a chance to actually show what they're made of. Like they played really good, like maneuvering. The Kotl was a big part, and Limp again on that game as well. Like he had some weak performances, but he went 19-1 at the end. Game score on game 2, and then game 3 happened in Secret sometimes. So it's like they had one good game in them. But
it's true. But the thing about game 3 is I actually thought Alliance's draft is much better than Secret's here, and that doesn't happen a lot with Secret. Usually people go into the game going, oh, even if this wasn't Secret, I feel bad for the other team. And then the fact that it's Secret, it makes it even worse.
For sure.
But in game 3, I thought, they've just lost. They haven't lost the series yet. I thought it's bound to happen eventually. Maybe it won't even happen at all now.
Yeah.
And I thought this is going to be it. But again, Secret just did this lanes, and they just stomped it from minute 2. It was crazy.
So in the end, like you said, Secret go 5-0 now. I think the last team they have to play against is playing against OG, and I think they're playing at High Coast. So assuming High Coast. So really, if it's going to be one series, it's going to be OG. Really, you think that might take the series, depending on it. But I think a lot of that series will be down to OG. Like OG are that very volatile team where they can show great performances and then they cannot. So I just want to briefly talk about the exploration of tiebreakers because we're in like week 5 now, so we've still got a few more weeks left. But the series and the bracket in general is looking very, very close. So just quickly talking about the tiebreakers. So the tiebreakers will only occur when it's the playoffs and the decider games. So between like getting into that 4th place, there'll be decider games. So if everyone's equal on score, so they're all like 3-4 or 4-3, then there'll be tiebreakers between them, and that will be depending on how many are in the tiebreaker. So if it's only between 2 teams, then they'll play a series, and whoever wins that series will then get qualified into the upper bracket. And the same goes for they only have a decider between remain and relegation. So of who's going to be relegated with High Coast Esports. So, and that will probably be quite an interesting one as well, because I'm pretty sure High Coast are relegated if they lose the series against Secret, which is most likely going to happen. And then it's like, who else is joining them in their relegation? Viking have just won against OG. They've won against Enigma as well. Enigma, Liquid, and I think Viking are all 2 and 3 now. So, it could be any of one of them, depending on how the series goes coming up to it as well. Liquid still have to play OG, and so there's a lot of variables, but basically saying that the playoffs and the deciders will happen for like the big decisions of what happens in the bracket. However, there won't be any playoffs between, like, even if there's an equal series between, say, 5th and 6th. So 5th and 6th, they both remain. It just who gets more money. And what that is dependent on is on how many matches they've won. So obviously whether they've been 2-0s or 2-1s, and also it comes onto the head-to-head. But the who gets into the brackets or who gets into the playoffs, who gets into the majors or the relegating, it will be purely on series wins. So it doesn't even matter that if you've already beaten a team. if your series win is the same, there still will be playoff between the series, and that will be really interesting because I think there's definitely going to be playoffs. Not only just going into the major, but also who gets relegated as well.
Absolutely, and I mean I don't know how it could work, but I'm wondering if there's a way to play for the major, and then you also have to play to be relegated.
Yeah, that would be something.
So
actually,
close.
That would
Literally,
be something.
There's
Actually,
4 teams on 2 and 3.
Yeah.
So say, for instance, they're fighting over the 4th place, then maybe they could even drop down. Like Viking GG, they have the worst series score at 4-8. They've won 4, lost 8 games. So it might be that they drop down. And so they could also fight for 4th place, but then have to fight to stay out of 7th. It would be crazy.
Be something. That would definitely be something. I mean, to be honest, I think any team getting relegated outside of High Coast Esports, I know they won one, but to be fair, any other team that getting relegated would be an absolute disaster, whoever it is. Like, could you imagine Can you imagine like Liquid or even Enigma like going into Division 2?
That would be something. A couple of weeks ago, I wish I'd thrown money on the fact that Enigma are going to get relegated, because that's how I feel. And that's could happen.
That could happen.
Crazy.
Can you check who is Enigma playing?
Enigma are playing next week Tundra.
Not an easy game.
And then the only good side for them is they're playing High Coast Esports.
Right, okay, yeah. So
that could be the saving grace.
Yeah.
But you never know.
You never know.
Just beat Viking GG.
I mean, if
Viking GG beat Enigma.
If High Coast beat Enigma and Enigma lose to Tundra, then they would then be on the same score as well. So, yeah, anything can really happen. I think it's what makes for an interesting series, an interesting league.
Absolutely.
But just moving on, let's go over to the hero and zero of the week. I've chosen Beastmaster to be really the hero of the week. Just going over a few stats: 91 games in all DPC divisions, both upper and lower. And it has a 62% win rate out of those 91 games. And a similar win rate in just the European upper and lower divisions, 68% win rate in 22 games. But, I mean, that win rate just sort of says in itself, really, how strong the hero is.
Absolutely.
You know, we've had wins with it from High Coast Esports, so that was their first win. They were playing Beastmaster. The Viking also were playing Beastmaster when they beat against OG. Just quickly mentioning on OG versus Viking, they also had a stand-in for that game, which was Keizu, playing for Toby in the off lane, which really I think even shows an even bigger kind of impresses me more that they're winning against OG with a stand-in. Whether Keizu is going to be a permanent stand-in is yet to be seen, because obviously now they've played a certain amount of games, they can start having different players in, and etc. etc. But that's really just sort of shows the strength of this hero. I know we were talking before the recording about how you're wanting to learn Beastmaster because the hero is seemingly pretty strong.
Very, very good. Yeah.
As for the zero, I kind of briefly mentioned it, but I'm going to pick out Gyrocopter. Hasn't been picked too much, really. 22 games in all of the DPC, with a kind of a paltry 40% win rate, but an even weaker win rate in European divisions with a 0% win rate, but only in 4 games, but still 0 games won in all of Europe Dota at the moment in the DPC. And I just think, like, really it's only being played as a carry, and if it's being played as a carry, it's kind of not really showing its strength, really. I think there's so many better carries. The only good thing it has to offer is its kind of early game kind of brawling. It has obviously a lot high amount of magic damage as a carry, but if that's where you're going, then there's other alternatives that can offer this kind of early game pressure and early game like magic damage, even like heroes like Weaver, Troll with Ags, for example. And then when it gets into the late game, you're kind of feeling like you have to get a rapier, otherwise you don't have enough damage, and it's just too risky.
Yeah. Because my zero of the week was actually going to be Luna, which I think has the same stats in the EU. I don't know about the rest of the DPC, but I think it's been picked up 4 times, because they mentioned it in the OG Viking game when OG picked it in game 1, and it hadn't won either.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering, is it because of the similar thing to Gyro? Her ulti is magic damage.
Yeah, it's a very similar kind of
single target damage.
It's definitely a similar thing.
Similar sort of thing.
But similar sort of thing in that they're both kind of bad. Really, they're both losing, they're both winning. But cool. Right, before we move on from this past week, and before we look at the next week, we're going to have look at the plays of the week segment, and I think we've got some really good plays. So take a look.
We see the supports on the side of OG. They're both about to be 6.
And if they give up this mid tower, it's going to feel like Enigma just have no space to breathe right now as Weehaw getting lower and lower with the extra bit of damage. Might be able to kill him, but Kuro is on top of No-Tail. At the same time, Mind Control gets dangerously low at the top lane. They did manage to chase down No-Tail, but look at Weehaw. He's being tracked out by mid one. Weehaw knows, though. A smart read by him. He TPs out instead of walking back.
Look at Kuro. He's stuck. He's been trapped by his teammate. He has to wait the whole time too. He can't get out of there.
They have no way to get him out. God, if he just died to mid one right now.
Oh no, the tree stuck to the tricks of the trade. Okay, gets the sentry down.
Okay, they roll into the wards here. The wards are not going to time out that soon, but they do manage to kill both the supports here. Mind Control's going to come in, make sure Soxa is finished. The spear actually not.
Hands getting hit. Tundra lose a couple, and again, I mean, I don't know if it would necessarily saved him in that situation, but Skida, he's a real fan of sort of popping the Manta and sending in the illusions aggressively. Has Ken, what? he just decides to walk into the Serpent wards. Maybe not quite expecting them to be on the high ground. And over to the side, Nico Baby, he's stuck around, he's getting gone on him by 33 and 9. They've got the ultimate as he'll hold his ground. Hex will stop him for now. Jump forward from 9, he's able to find us from the backline. Skinner, as Fiver, he's going to grab onto Nico Baby. Nico Baby's going to be held in position. A cold embrace will heal him up. FNG trying his best to save him. The silence is about to come to an end on 9 as 33's already chasing. 9's in with the Yules into Remnant. They pull back Nico Baby, they're taking him down. He's dead. As Alliance, they're still trying to fight this limp. Can't get 9 though. 9's out with a step.
They're gonna go and just walk right into pit, use the exorcism. Feeling real strong on the side of Creep. Good reason.
Yeah, they're gonna afford to delay the tower push bottom, but now that they've got the 5-on-4, I think it would have been easy enough to walk in with all your ultimates at the ready. But now without that Bloodseeker,
Desire? Desire stacked up the Aegis? What a player. This Earth Spirit. Coming right back up again. He's probably gonna die. But they managed to go and get the Soulbind off his flash, trying to get in the middle of all of them. Does manage to stun it. They get the kill on Crystallis. They'll turn back around. Go and just Soulbind them up here. ATF, he's not looking too great, but neither is Blink because he goes down to the arena. He's absolutely fine. Rupture's gonna come out again here over on the Death Prophet. Try to buy her a little bit more time, but Conti's hungry. He's chasing after Malorine, and he'll be able to get the kill. Fishman also go down. Over back in the pit, you can see that there's an Earthshaker. He would love to do anything here, but he needs some help as Amar finally gets taken down. And there's the kill on Milan. Kentucky.
A remnant, so Pikachu going for the body blocking, but that is very ill-advised as the rest of the team was up on the high ground here. Ghostic does throw out the Primal Roar and is going to get some damage onto the Legion Commander here. This freezing field out from Slayer is going to push everybody else back and potentially keep Ghostic alive. He's burning in the flames. Solo gets that last impetus shot required to trade 2 for 2 there.
Well, we also see a Blink Rush instead of that BKB on Aragon, so just kind of demonstrating their understanding of their threat. BKB is more for taking big engagement. He's not looking to do that.
Dude, Solo just got outplayed so hard. Damn, that was some beautiful micro from Bignum.
Top while still getting last hits, so doesn't matter that much. Not really. He's still up in last hits. Thompson has the matchup understanding that's clearly better, but Seb pressured again here.
On the bottom lane, they have the Inkswell. They start winding up, and that'll connect. Nice Impale again coming out from Soxa. They throw out the Boundless. Not quite enough damage to get the kill on Seb. He's had a couple close calls at this point. But I do see that Boom has teleported out of his lane.
Interesting. Back to heal, I guess. He wasn't able to get the rune himself, obviously, because it was top instead of bottom, so finding some cracks in their armor here. Soxa missed a crucial blink stun as well, so just a couple small mistakes from OG to once again try to force the tempo too much, and rough for them.
I love that play from Aramis over there. He sees the double damage. He sees that Treant. He was going over there to try to deny it, and he just throws out the shackle so that way Boom can grab up the double damage. I like that. Go in. boars, birds, necro units, but they're in the pit now. Viking needs to get over there soon, but how do they approach this? Hawk's gonna go out, trying to gain a little bit of vision. Zip forward here, coming out from Thompson, immediately the dodge from Boom.
Oh, they're going in.
Use the Yules over here onto Kazi, but he does have the BKB, and over on the back, Boom going and dropping down all of the damage that he possibly can. Sub's trying to get everybody into the car, but mid-1 he goes down! Divine Rapier picked up now on Void Spirit. Oh.
A rough one. They kind of committed. Thompson jumps in, trying to slow things down, but they use the trees near this large camp to jump in the rest of the way. And once he's in and pops BKB, he also stunned Gyro pretty early there. BKB didn't come out on mid-1 just fast enough, and as a result, he just stayed way too long. Took too long for him to get out of that fight. So now they got to get the Rapier back.
Yes, they do. That is what they're looking for here, but there's a lot of damage being dumped out over onto Soxflu. Go to get the stun up. Thompson remnanting forward. He's looking to see maybe they can get it down, but not quite enough damage as finally they do manage to get that Aegis Kaza trying to run away. He's just getting chased down by Thompson. He's going to go down. Boom, stepping forward, has his eyes over onto Sox, but he's too far away. They're going to be able to go. They fight. They take him down. They get the Rapier back online now here for Ember Spirit as Shad is forced to run away. Yules will set up very nicely for the Impale. Thompson coming in hot here. He's got no tail as well. Go eat the cheese. BKB comes out. They'll turn right back around again. They get the Hex. They're holding him into place. They have the balance. Down goes Thompson. They can go and they can pick that Rapier right back up again as soon as they can get over there. And it is going to be Monkey King snatching it back up. No tail on the run. He's trying to get away. Soxy takes so much damage from that one monkey on the back lines. Buybacks coming out en masse. This Rapier is just a game of hot potato.
Airgon's running. How close is he now? He's got it! Wait, what did he sell? Did he sell something? He sold something, didn't he, Fogged?
Yeah, what did he sell? I can't remember.
You're smart. What did he have before?
Urn? He had Urn?
He had Urn. No.
Vessel. He had the full vessel. Yeah, he had the full vessel. Yeah.
All right, here we go.
So he sells it for the...
Here we go.
Okay, let's see.
Let's see. Okay, now they need more than that for a fish. No, this isn't how. That's not how it's supposed to. That is not how it's supposed to.
Oh, it's
that's no.
And Chris.
Well, that was disappointing.
Just calling it.
Yeah,
they
that
was.
It. I mean, that was. Yeah, I was disappointed. Everyone's disappointed. That. GG, it's over.
It was their only hope is to land the double cataclysm on everybody. They missed it, and it's over.
I don't know what they only hit the fish on one. That's not the go sign. But they decided to take it. As you said, they.
So yeah, there we go. That was the last week's plays and fails of the week. So if we can move on now to our main talking point, I just want to talk about the slots. Obviously, we've already had last week that the news of the major, the Singaporean major, is coming up soon. So just talking about the slots of each region, we've got 2 for NA, 2 for SA, and then 3 for CIS and 3 for SEA, and then 4 for China and Europe. I mean, do we think that's fair? Any other ways that we can kind of rejig that, to be honest? I mean...
EU deserve to have 4. Mm-hmm. You know, I think it's the best region. I know that China is very strong as well. A lot of people watching them. I just don't know too much about the other ones enough to know. I mean, it's probably your place to know more about these other regions. You're a person who watches
Dota. I mean, I think... The thing is that I think it's hard to say because you have to balance. Obviously, you want on one hand you want the best teams right at the major, regardless of who's in the region. That's like one of the things. It's there for a competitive region. Obviously, the best teams are going to bring the best Dota, and it's going to bring the most amount of hype games. Yada yada yada. On the other hand, though, is that you do have to be balanced in terms of how many slots each region gets because it is developing the scene. It is building hype and interest from that region as well, and the idea of growing the game. Like if you have no slots for SA, then the region's popularity of Dota is like goes down. They start looking at playing League of Lesbians, like, you know, all these different things, and it's like it's that thing. So you have to kind of balance the two, but so it's like how far can you kind of bridge that line? Because at the end of the day, like I could easily have like 6 slots for EU in, like, you know, your teams like, you know, Enigma, Alliance, Secret, you know, Tundra have been so good as well. Then you've got, you know, Viking playing good, and an OG. Like, there's so many great teams in Europe, and even you could say it's like, you know, Viking as well. Even though they might be the 7th seed, have played really good. They've beaten taking series off of OG and Enigma. Such a competitive region that it's hard to say that, you know, 4 EU slots. You even wonder maybe could there be 5, but then like that's a really heavy bias. And then also who do you take it away from as well? You know, so it's a really hard region. I think, like, I've been watching quite a few NA games as well, and I think, to be fair, I think 2 NA is fair because, you know, you have EG and Quincy Crew are probably the 2 favourites, but there has been some decent teams like 4 Zoomers and Undying, but at the end of the day, I think it makes sense that probably 2 for NA. For SA, I think it's one of those things that I think significantly are very weak. Like Beast Coast are really your favourites in SA, and other than that, like everyone's very equal. But if you take and give SA only 1 slot, then it's going to be Beast Coast every single season, and it's not going to change. And it's like, well, then where's the growth of the seed? Is it going to die out? Yada yada yada. 3 for CIS and SEA, I think, is also very good as well. Like a lot of strong teams. So I think overall it's equal. But the one thing I think that they could do that they haven't done before is, and they're trying to implement it now, but this idea of like they're having almost like a playoff between different regions going into the major. So instead of like it being like 4 slots for China, you know, 4 slots for EU and 3 slots for CIS, you have maybe like 2 slots for each, and then the remaining like battle it out, like for the remaining,
kind of like a wild card.
Yeah, wild card thing, and that's kind of they're kind of doing that going into the major. So like 3rd and 4th of EU are going into the playoffs of the major, but they're going to the major. It's just then they play off to figure out who's going to make it onto the main stage. Yada, yada. I mean, even before that like they play to get to the play, like to get to the wild card in the major, because that way then you can guarantee it's fair in the sense that the best teams will go, but also it can breed like good competition. So you're saying that, okay, then
but I suppose.
Yeah.
Go on.
No,
I was just saying the biggest problem then is the ping, isn't it? If you're saying that you're doing a wild card between, you know, Europe and someone on the other side of the world, you know, you've then got the unfairness of, well, where do you stage it? You know, at least at the LAN, you're already there. You know, the ping's not going to be a problem. But yeah, I know what you mean. It seems a bit strange. But I mean, would you just do a flat 3 for everyone? If it's your choice?
I don't know. I think 3 for everyone is a bit too much, because then you're giving like very easy slots over to SA and NA. Yeah, I think it's probably the best way they've got it. But I think if money wasn't an issue, I think if they could kind of get like even fly these teams out and to sort of see if they can get a chance to play in the major, but like on land, so then you can kind of figure it out. But yeah, it's hard to say, but it's interesting conversation nonetheless. Just on to some next news. We've got even more sponsors this time for the CIS division. Live to Win, which is kind of the 3rd best team in CIS, picked up a partnership from a football team, actually, of all places. AS Monaco have now picked up to AS Monaco Gambit. We've kind of had this scene before with PSG LGD as well. So like PSG Paris Saint-Germain football team sponsoring a Chinese team, which kind of seems weird.
Yeah,
but
it was a bit strange.
I think there's a lot of kind of Chinese investment there in general. But it's kind of cool. You know, obviously we've got 8 teams now kind of sponsored in Europe, and now we're seeing a lot more CIS as well. So I think the structure of this league, I think, is really good. And I think it's a lot of stability for sponsors, which I think is something that Dota hasn't had in the past. I think there's definitely more to be done, but you know, it's good that they're working towards something. So maybe next season, I think the biggest thing is maybe play time and money, like we've talked about before in last week's. But there should be probably more money into the majors or into the leagues in itself. But that's kind of cool, regardless.
It's at least nice seeing Valve doing something with
exactly.
Dota, rather than just we're going to do this big tournament once a year,
and
make millions
have
of money
fun
from it,
the rest of the year. See you later.
and then do whatever you guys want. It's at least they're getting a bit more invested in this game, which is deserved.
Yeah, for sure. So and the final talking point, we briefly mentioned it a little bit. So it's been over halfway now on the league season, and we're starting to sort of see stand-ins for teams that have already played amount of time. So just to keep in mind, I think teams had to play at least 4 series with the original roster before they could play with any other standings or yada yada yada. So it just sort of makes a more hard roster lock, so teams aren't just swapping out players and stuff. And we've already seen that. So now, with Viking, they've picked up kind of Keizu, and when he was interviewed after their win against OG, it kind of seems like it might be a permanent thing with Keizu playing as the offlane for Viking. I mean, I've just got a good history of Keizu. I used to hang out with him back in Hondays, met up with him when he was playing in Thailand. Really cool guy, really committed to the scene, and a real professional, to be honest. So I'm good to sort of see some success with him. But also in the lower division as well, Milan was picked up by a sort of Team Creepwave. So we're starting to sort of see a little bit more changes. And I think that's good, because I think there does need to be a kind of period for a chance to change up. But at the same time, it's stable enough that we've only really seen one team change players in the whole of the European upper division, which is...
So is this where it's now possible to pick up people like Samael?
Yeah, kind of. That's what we're looking, and they can. I think they technically would be classed as stand-ins, because they're not able to actually change the main roster, but they're able to play with stand-ins for the rest of the season. And particularly with teams that aren't sponsored, then they can kind of do whatever they want, because obviously these teams like Secret Liquid, they have contracts that they can't just get kicked, or they can't just leave without any legal recourse. So yeah, so I mean, there's the thing about the Samael, but to be honest, because we talked about the slots as well, he's really would only join EG or Quincy Curie, because he's not going to join a team that's not going to get to the major. And that's if he doesn't join a team in a different region. I'm sure he would be more than willing to relocate, because he kind of did with OG, but then with OG and all that kind of stuff. So just moving on now, just have a quick look at some of the other regions. So NA is just looking at the NA region. EG has basically qualified to be the top of the NA. Obviously, they only have 2 major slots, but they're 5-0 at the moment, and their last game is against kind of the bottom of the seed. But they have yet to play Quincy Crew, which is kind of the favoured second team. So technically, they could still be coming in second if they lose to Quincy Crew. But we'll wait and see if they do. And obviously, they want to come in first, because if they come in first, they go straight to the playoff bracket in the major, so they don't even have to worry about the group stage, which is a really big thing, because that means more DPC points, more money, less pressure of losing, yada yada yada. Moving over to CIS, and I wanted to double check this actually, and I should have checked it beforehand. But I know for certain that Na'Vi has already qualified to the major, because I saw the Singapore major make a tweet about how congratulations to Na'Vi, they're already qualified to the major, so congratulations to them. As for Virtus Pro as well, I think I assume they have also automatically qualified to the major, because they're on the same series win as Na'Vi, and I think actually that is the case, because third place is Team Spirit with 2 and 3. So Virtus Pro and Na'Vi are 5-0, and that would automatically mean they're both qualified to the major. Obviously, there's still the third slot up for grabs, because there's obviously 3 slots for CIS, but that's kind of cool. And Na'Vi and Virtus Pro have also yet to play each other. Their game is the last game of the CIS.
Week 6,
so that's on week 6. So kind of similar to NA in that respect. 1 and 2 have yet to be kind of shown, but they're both undefeated. As for China is in the Chinese New Year, so there's actually been no Dota being played this week, and there's no Dota being played in the week coming either, because they've just been halting proceedings. So I guess this in some ways does give time for some other teams to kind of catch up. I know Europe have been sort of having a few interviews and saying that China are the kind of the region to watch. They're kind of ahead of the meta in some. I know Yapsa was talking about it in his interview when Secret played. So it gives chance for teams in Europe to kind of catch up and maybe develop the meta. But we'll let it to be seen. But
look, these guys are Dota players. Whether it's the new year or not, they're playing Dota. There's no catching up. You know, there's just they're still playing. There may not be games to watch because I'm assuming they're thinking that people are going to be too busy celebrating. But I'm sure these Chinese Dota players are still playing Dota.
Yeah, man, this is China though, man. Like, it's crazy. I don't know if you no. There's a big.
Maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know, man.
So.
But, no, you're probably right. Though. I think they're still playing, but there's no official games anyway.
Yeah, no professional games.
They've definitely arranged that. So let's move on to the week's up-and-coming games. Obviously, it's Monday, so our first games will be tomorrow, and those will be Enigma versus Tundra, Secret versus High Coast. Enigma versus Tundra, I mean, huge series, really. As you said, they're both 2 and 3. Is that correct, Jazz? I think you said. So really, that could be a huge decider on if A, any of them go to the major, and 2, potentially who could get relegated. And I think, honestly, if Enigma lose, right, and they get relegated, that team is going to disband in one form or another.
Do you think?
I think they are going to disband because this team, right, TI finalists with the same roster. Not only that, TI and 9 finalists as well. Like this team, like to get relegated to the lower division is a huge thing, honestly.
Now, do you think it will completely disband, or do you think
there'll be a reshuffle?
Do you think they'll do what Twitch want and they get Weeha and just go?
Yeah,
and that'd be it.
I don't know. I could see them getting rid of mind control as well. And
I actually think that more so. I agreed with Contra, last week.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think just because of play, because I think mind control is still a solid player. I think it's because like if you like you can kind of tell by like these interviews, and if you watch some of their blogs and on their Twitter, Miracle, GH, and Kuroki are like 3 best friends. They're like really tight. The other 2 are like the kind of outsiders, you know, like Mind Control was staying with them longer. Obviously, Weeha is the most outsider because he's the newest and he's like, you know, has yet to win TI with them and stuff and yada, yada, yada. But I could see Mind Control going as well. And I think, depending on obviously, you know, it depends if there's offers from other teams as well. But I can imagine Miracle, Kuroki and GH sticking together. But if they do implode, I think they'll see a new offlaner and a new mid. Who knows? The Twitch chat could get the Samao to Enigma. Maybe that could be their chance to happen. But in some ways, I almost want Enigma to get relegated, so I see a change up on Enigma. It just because of that reason alone, a very selfish reason, but it would be cool to sort of see. Because, I mean, like regardless of what happens, like Kuroki will stay with Enigma, and like with a world-class captain and leader, like Kuroki will find players, like S-tier players to play with. You just got to figure out, you know, how to find and get there. So obviously, then there's the Secret versus High Coast series. Secret are looking dominant, and no disrespect to High Coast, but that's probably going to be a 2-0 as well. But who knows? Then the Wednesday series, again, kind of a big game. Viking versus Alliance. I think Alliance are 3-2, but Viking are 2-3. Again, really important for both teams. I think if Alliance win that, they'll get 4 points, which almost kind of confirms them at least top 4. Not necessarily second, but most likely third or fourth. And Viking obviously need it for even potential for major or even to keep out of the relegation. Then there's the Liquid versus OG, and me personally, there's a lot of skin in this game as well because I have a sinking theory that Liquid might get relegated, and they need to win that, and it's a big thing for OG as well, considering that OG lost against Viking. If OG beat Viking, I think they were almost guaranteed for the major. But seeing as they lost, they need the series as much as Liquid do as well. So OG, I think, are 3-2. Is that correct? And then Liquid are 2-3. So yeah, that could obviously equalise it. If Liquid win, they're both 3-3, and then it's anyone's game after that. So that's a huge series, really. Both teams really need to win that. And
again, I think both of those teams can be very hit and miss.
Very volatile.
So I think it'll be a very interesting series to just see who turns up on the day.
Yeah, really, really interesting. And then there's the Tundra Viking again. They're both 2-3. So there's these few matches now coming into the final week. So every game is so important. Everyone needs to win. Yeah. And to be honest, I couldn't have asked for some better tight series and good games. There's been a lot of hype throughout the season, throughout the league, and it sustained that kind of hype, And yeah,
Absolutely.
I'm really looking forward to that. But if you want to, do you want to quickly go over how you see these games going? I'm going to say Tundra are going to beat Enigma. I think it's going to be a 2-1. I think Secret are going to beat High Coast. I don't know how you think those two games are going to go.
I actually agree with you. Again, I feel like there's something not quite right with Enigma. And I feel like, I mean, I respect Kroki a lot, but I just feel like Tundra, for some reason, are going to take this.
Yeah.
And then, I do think Secret are going to beat High Coast.
Yeah.
The only thing that I've seen High Coast do last week that was good was this group together and push. Secret quite like to have their time to set the pace, and if High Coast push it, you never know.
And I think Secret are so good in lanes as well. So even if High Coast have this kind of push strategy, I think they're going to get stomped in lanes, and then you're so limited. You're so limited. Exactly, you're so limited in what you can do when you lose lanes. So. And then there's Viking versus Alliance. I think I would give it to Alliance. I think in this series, but at the same time, Viking beating OG, they've beaten Enigma. Like I could see it going either way. I would just favour Alliance because I think at the moment Alliance are on this kind of high a little bit. They're looking good. They've beaten OG. Obviously they beat Secret that one game. Obviously didn't take the series, but I don't think they're going to be too bothered that they lost to Secret. It's not like, oh, we lost to Secret, let's disband. Like, it's Secret after all, So I think
who's Vikings mid player?
Boom.
Yeah, he is good though. Yeah, no, just because I was thinking, I wondered how the limp matchup
for sure. I mean, there was that whole big mid thing between Thompson and Boom. I think Thompson was outplaying him overall, but at the end of the day, it's not all to do with mid lane. It's how the team plays together, and it's not just the lane either. There's a lot of things outside of it as well. But yeah, I would probably give that a 2-1. I think to Alliance. I think it'll be a close series all through. Liquid versus OG, mate. Honestly,
I think could be the series of the week.
Yeah, and I think it can be so volatile as well. Like, I could see it being a 2-0 for either team, like it being kind of like either Liquid 2-0 and OG or OG 2-0, or it could be like this crazy. Every game is a 60-minute game, and it's like really because of how much
rapiers. Yeah,
rapiers are like going everywhere because this series is probably the most important, really, in terms of how everything goes in the group. And there's Tundra versus Vikings. So, I mean, really, every series is a must-watch, really. Maybe Secret versus High Coast, you could maybe get away with not watching that, but every series is a must-watch, and I'm really looking forward to this week of Dota.
I also think this is a must-win for OG. Simply next week they face Secret.
Exactly.
And that's their last game.
Yeah.
And I think if OG lose this one, then there's so much pressure to beat Secret.
Exactly.
Let's be honest, who would you rather think we need to win one of these two games? You've got to think
true.
And so let's wait and see.
True, definitely. Cool. So that is the week's games up ahead. I'm really excited to watch all of those games. Actually, it's going to really be a really good week for Dota. So just before we end out, let's have a look at some of the viewer question and answers. We only got one question, but we briefly mentioned it. Will teams disband or implode if they get relegated or don't get to the major? For example, like Liquid or OG. And I think that little caveat of don't get to the major, I think, is a big thing as well. Because, yes, it would be an absolute disaster if Enigma get relegated, but it would still also be quite a big upset if they don't make it to the major. This is, TI winners and TI finalists just last year. Not make it to the major is a huge thing. What do you think, anyway?
Yeah, it's so hard to know because, I mean, talking about a team disbanding is very different to them changing one player as well. Yeah. But I mean, it's possible because every tournament is really important to these players for money, for sponsorships, for a lot of things. And so, if a team doesn't make one of these big tournaments, that's weird and it's tough. And they may think, well, we need to keep playing. If they don't even make a major, we're not even just talking about losing at the final here, we're talking about not even making a major. So I could see it happening,
because obviously if they miss the major as well, then there's very limited chance to get DPC points, and then the be all and end all, which is the international. Like, if you remember, there was meant to be 3 seasons of this DPC format, but because of Corona, there's
Yeah.
only 2 this year. So assumingly next year there's going to be 3, but because of this this shortened or quickened format, there's only 2 leagues. So if you don't make it to the first major, there's only one more major left before TI. So there's very limited chances to get these DPC points. I think you do make a good point about the whole disbanding. I think actually because of the way the leagues are formatted and there's a very quick turnaround, so there's about a month before the leagues finish and then the majors start, and then the same goes for when the major ends to when the new series starts. But I think because of that, I think we'll see less teams actually disband, but I think we will see changes in the team. So before, after TI, there was teams that just completely dissolved. Like everyone went different separate ways. Whereas I think because of the quick turnaround, there won't be this 5 players all just finding new teams. There'll be 1, maybe 2. I think it'd be rare that we 3-player changes, but there's
mind control.
Yeah, Sumail maybe, like this kind of thing. But I also think it depends on the teams as well. Liquid has stayed together for a very long time now. I think they're one of the longest teams that have stayed the same roster. Obviously, they changed from Alliance brand to Liquid brand.
Yeah.
Them, I think, even if they didn't make the major, I'm not so sure about getting relegated, but I think they would stay together because they're also kind of they're new professionals. They used to be obviously heroes of newer players, obviously outside of Quakefar. And I think they would stay together because it's their best chance to succeed is when they're together. But teams like OG, these are the best teams in the world. But they can basically get anyone they want. I think if they're not getting the results they want, I think there will be changes for sure. Cool. So that will be the end of this episode of DPC Digest. Any closing thoughts, Jazz? I do appreciate you coming on. I know you got to talk to me, but I mean,
No, it's all good. No, just again, I did not think that this DPC would be this interesting and I would be this enjoying it this much. To be honest, I think early we talked about, do you prefer this kind of way of setting it up or do we prefer more tournaments? And I quite liked this, and I 100% still am loving this, and I'm really glad.
It just brings a different format, like every game, every week is important, and it's it's digestible. It kind of feels like there's more sports kind of vibe, and I love it.
And we haven't lost that urge. I mean, we're in week 5, and we're talking about how important every single game is now, and so you've still got that excitement, which is awesome. Bring on this week.
Cool. So let's bring on that week indeed. What a great way to end the podcast. So guys, just remember, catch us next week as well. We'll be having this every single week. And until then, guys, I hope to see you in another video. Till then, keep grinding and
grinding.
See you later, boys.
All right.
Peace out.